Okay, I'm going to read On Truth and Lies in a Non-Moral Sense, recommended by Professor Anton. Not sure I've ever read this originally unpublished essay written supposedly in 1873. I got this, I believe, from a place called Filepedia. I'm not sure who the translator is, doesn't seem to indicate. So that might be a flaw in it. Now, I came to this essay because I had asked for clarification. Professor Anton, none forthcoming. I had characterized Professor Anton. Then I had said, why do you say there's no replies to you? He said, oh, well, you say nothing that's, you're not critiquing me. So then I told him where my critiques come from to give him as an academic maybe something to go on that he could understand. Nietzsche had some comments and just the general idea, approach to cognitive science of the embodied mind. He still came back after that and said he had absolutely no recognition of his position being critiqued to me, and yet, he mentioned things like this Nietzsche essay, which is my criticisms of him as we go through this, you'll see. Because I will go through and as issues relate to this conversation, I'll illuminate them as such, and they are many. There's other interesting things in here that you relate maybe a little less directly. But I think it shows that Professor Anton was able to understand my criticism, understand how it relates to what he said, and he has some sophisticated explanation as to why it doesn't count these criticisms, why this paper by Nietzsche is just a problem and not necessarily worth describing what sort of a problem. Then obviously there is a problem. All right, might take an hour, who knows. On Truth and Lies in a Non-Moral Sense, 1873, Friedrich Nietzsche. Once upon a time, in some out-of-the-way corner of that universe which is dispersed into numberless twinkling solar systems, there was a star upon which clever beasts invented knowing. Okay, we're one sentence in, and I don't have... I'm not inclined to think he's going to aggrandize human beings, at the very least. That was the most arrogant and mendacious minute of quote-unquote world history, but nevertheless, it was only a minute. After nature had drawn a few breaths, the star cooled and congealed, and the clever beasts had to die. One might invent such a fable, and yet he still would not have adequately illustrated how miserable, how shadowy and transient, how aimless and arbitrary the human intellect looks within nature. Okay, that's how I feel. This is why I'm not wanting to just say, oh, we're speaking a different nature, a different language. You can go ahead and aggrandize that nature with superlative of superlatives, and we'll pretend that my criticism has nothing to do with that. It's different language. You're speaking, French. There were eternities during which it did not exist, and when it is all over with, the human intellect, nothing will have happened. For this intellect has no additional mission which would lead it beyond human life. Rather, it is human, and only its possessor and begetter takes it so solemnly, as does Dana Garrett, as though the world's axis turned within it. But if we could communicate with the gnat, we would learn that he likewise flies through the air with the same solemnity, that he feels the flying center of the universe within himself, every living creature. Okay, this is one of the reasons I get this. You see, Nietzsche never says, I'm a skeptic, but he talks very skeptically. Never says, oh, I'm a big relativist, but he talks very relativistically. There is nothing so reprehensible and unimportant in nature that it would not immediately swell up like a balloon at the slightest puff of this power of knowing. And just as every porter wants to have an admirer, so even the proudest of men, the philosopher, supposes that he sees on all sides the eyes of the universe telescopically focused upon his action and thought. It is remarkable that this was brought about by the intellect, which was certainly allotted to these most unfortunate, delicate, and ephemeral beings merely as a device for detaining them a minute within existence. For without this addition, they would have every reason to flee this existence as quickly as Lessing's sun. The pride connected with knowing and sensing lies like a blinding fog over the eyes and senses of men, thus deceiving them concerning the value of existence. Now, like this For this pride contains within itself the most flattering estimation of the value of knowing. Deception is the most general effect of such pride, but even its most particular effects contain within themselves something of the same deceitful character. As a means for preserving the individual, the intellect unfolds its principal powers in dissimulation, which is the means by which the weaker, less robust individuals preserve themselves, since they have been denied the chance to wage the battle for existence with horns or with the sharp teeth of beasts of prey. This art of dissimulation reaches its peak in man. Deception, flattering, lying, deluding, talking behind the back, putting up a false front, living in a borrowed splendor, wearing a mask, hiding behind convention, playing a role for others and for oneself. In short, a continuous fluttering around the solitary flame of vanity is so much the rule and the law among men that there is almost nothing which is less comprehensible than how an honest and pure drive for truth could have arisen among them. Okay, this is not aggrandizing human beings. This is embracing our limitations in the face of our wonderful superlative gifts. Superlative single, not squared. This is where now our conversation, Professor Anton and I, went into kind. Is there really such a thing as kind or degree? Because to say humans are special requires some sort of semi-fundamentalish kind of specially place for the idea of kind, to which this specialness attaches in kind and not degrees. And here Nietzsche says, they are deeply immersed in illusions and in dream images. Their eyes merely glide over the surface of things and see, quote-unquote, forms. Their senses nowhere lead to truth. On the contrary, they are content to receive stimuli and, as it were, to engage in a groping game on the backs of things. Moreover, man permits himself to be deceived in his dreams every night of his life. His moral sentiment does not even make an attempt to prevent this, whereas there are supposed to be men who have stopped snoring through sheer willpower. What does man actually know about himself? Is he indeed ever able to perceive himself completely, as if laid out in a lighted display case? Does nature not conceal most things from him, even concerning his own body, in order to confine and lock him within a proud, deceptive consciousness, aloof from the coils of the bowels, the rapid flow of the blood stream, and the intricate quivering of the fibers? She threw away the key, and woe to that fatal curiosity which might one day have the power to peer out and down through a crack in the chamber of consciousness, and then suspect that man is sustained in the indifference of his ignorance by that which is pitiless, greedy, insatiable, and murderous, as if hanging in dreams on the back of a tiger. Given this situation, where in the world could the drive for truth have come from? And I would say, have even come from. Okay, so we've set up something where it's shocking we have anything to claim. He seems to be implying we do have some claim. We have to explain where this thing came from. But do we? Maybe we don't have to explain where it came from. Okay. Still on page 2. This is going to be like 5 hours. No. Page 2, yeah. An hour or so. You have been warned.